Om Satyam Param Dhimai. Om Satyam Param Dhimai. Om Satyam Param Dhimai. Om Satyam Param Dhimai. Om Satyam Param Dhimai.
We are talking about self-observation, and we said that self-observation begins with observation of moods. Which state am I in? And as we keep observing these states, so we said initially we'll keep a timer. The timer will ring a couple of times in a day, and at that moment we will stop and ask ourselves, which state am I in? We will look inside. And whether we are in a negative state or a non-negative state, there is nothing like a positive state. It is only when we can rise into states in which there are no opposites do we understand what a positive state is. So just now it is either a non-negative state or a negative state. We may be feeling happy, but that happiness is not a positive state, because at any time it can turn into a state of sadness. So a positive state is one which does not have an opposite. So we are now keeping this timer. This timer is ringing a few times in the day, 8-10 times in the day, and we are asking ourselves, where am I? Just like we have a physical country outside, and in this physical country there are beautiful places and there are ugly places. If we go to a hill station, it is a beautiful place. Right? But if we go to where the sewer is going out, the gutter is going out, it could be an ugly place. If we go to a place where we can be robbed very easily, then there are mean streets. Similarly, we may be in a mean state inside. So just as we have a physical country, we live in a physical country, we live in a psychological country. And that psychological country has beautiful places and ugly places. Where do we like to live? Do we like to live in the ugly places, or do we like to live in the beautiful places? If we like to live in more negative states, if we are always finding fault with someone else, if we are always complaining about something, if we are always blaming somebody else, if we are always reacting with irritation, if we are in a state of suspicion, if we are in a state of jealousy, if we are justifying all our weaknesses, if we are feeling in a state that, oh, I have done something so good, meritoriousness, right? Then we are in a negative state. Then we are in the gutter. We enjoy being in the gutter. We enjoy swimming in dirty waters. Where am I right now? And this timer will ring in the day 8 times, 10 times in the day, and we will ask our question, where am I? So we start our self-observation with observation of states, observation of moods. And then we recognize which eyes within us try to take us, make us hypnotized with this state. There may be eyes within me which want to take revenge on somebody. Now I'm stuck with that negative state of taking revenge. There may be eyes within me which don't trust somebody. They are suspicious about somebody. Now those eyes have hypnotized me into a state of suspicion. I'm stuck with that state. I can't see those eyes as something separate from me, who are playing mischief with me, who are trying to entice me into a negative state. Just as I go into the dark streets of town and somebody is trying to entice me to go and rob somebody's house. I can't see within myself, in my own psychological country, I can't see that somebody is hypnotizing me to commit a sin. Not commit a sin outside, inside. So we start with what states am I in? Which eyes are leading me to these states? And this process will last for a long time. Now the second step in our self-observation is observation of contradictions within me. And this will require a little deeper self-observation. We have whole lists of contradictions, whether in the intellectual, whether in the emotional, whether in the instinctive. Say in the instinctive, there is like and dislike. Can you talk of one very simple observation? Simple observation. Supposing we have gone to somebody's house, right? And there are two vegetables. There is cauliflower and there are brinjals. We don't like brinjals and we like cauliflower. I'm not talking about myself. Okay, we are there with our very, very goody face outside. Oh, what a nice person. Now, how do we observe this? How do we observe this? What happens? Do we eat the brinjals first or do we eat the cauliflower first? Which one do we eat first? We'll first finish the brinjals so that we can enjoy the cauliflower. Right? So we'll quickly finish but then our host, what will he or she understand? She'll say, can you see the inner contradiction? This is in the instinctive center. In the instinctive center. Similarly, we have contradictions in the emotional center, which are very, very important to observe. Contradictions in the intellectual center. Can you give me some contradictions, say in the intellectual center? Say one father is teaching his young daughter. Don't say yeah, say yes. Don't say yeah, say yes. Right? So the daughter is talking to her friend and she says yeah, and the father says, I told you, don't say yeah, say yes. And And then the father gets a phone and he says, yeah? What happened? Can you see the contradiction? Can you see the contradiction? So, there are whole layers of contradictions inside. Whole layers of contradictions inside. And unless we can observe these contradictions, we can never be free of those contradictions. Now, why do we want to be free of these contradictions? I think I talked about it last year. Why would we want to be free of these contradictions? We're going to go a little deeper into them today. Because as long as we are stuck with one side, we'll never have a perception of the whole. These are like small walls within us. Small walls within us. And we cannot see the other side of the wall when we are on this side of the wall. We don't even know that the other side of the wall exists. આમાં ક્યાંય ગુજરાતી કરવાનું હોય તો કહેજો. ફરીથી કરું ગુજરાતી? ભણવા આવ્યા કે ભણાવવા આવ્યા? થોડી ગયે વખતે વાત થઈ હતી કે સેલ્ફ ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન અંદરની સ્થિતિ હું ક્યાં છું ત્યાંથી ચાલુ થાય છે. ત્યાર પછી એ સ્થિતિમાં મને રાખવા માટે, એ સ્થિતિથી ચાલાકીથી મને રાખવા માટે કયા કયા આઈઝ છે? તો એ સ્થિતિ સેલ્ફ ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન ઓફ મૂડ્સ અને આઈઝ. હવે નેક્સ્ટ જે લેયર ઓફ સેલ્ફ ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન આવે છે, આપણી અંદર વિરોધોનું આખું એક હારમાળા છે અંદર. લેયર એન્ડ લેયર વિરોધો. અને આજે આપણે કોઈકની સાથે કંઈક વાત કરીએ છીએ અને આવતીકાલે આપણને ખબર જ નથી ત્યાં એનાથી સાવ ઉલટી વાત કોઈક બીજાની સાથે કરીએ છીએ. અને બધે જગ્યાએ આપણને એમ જ લાગે છે કે આપણે સાચા છીએ. અને આ જે અંદર વિરોધો પડ્યા છે એ બેવ સાઈડની વચ્ચે એવી રીતે દિવાલો ઊભા છે કે આપણને જ્યારે આ સાઈડ હોય ત્યારે આ સાઈડ દેખાતું નથી. અને આની અંદર ઘણા છે એ કનેક્ટેડ જે છે એ કેરેક્ટર સાથે કનેક્ટેડ છે. કેરેક્ટર સાથે કનેક્ટેડ છે. એટલે આપણે કોઈને દોષ આપતા હોય કે ભાઈ આ માણસનો ભરોસો કરતા નહીં, એ ભરોસો કરવા જેવો માણસ નથી. આપણે અંદર કેટલી વાર આપણે બદલી ચૂક્યા છે. જ્યારે આ બોલીએ છે ત્યારે એ દિવાલનો બીજો ભાગ આપણને દેખાતો નથી. અને આવી રીતે અંદર ખૂબ દિવાલો છે. એ દિવાલો જ્યાં સુધી ઓગળતા નથી ત્યાં સુધી અંદરના વિરોધો જે છે એની અંદર આપણે જીવવું પડે છે. હવે એ દિવાલો શું કામ આપણે ઓગાળવા છે? Why do we want to be free of contradictions? Let us come to that. Is consciousness, right? And that is our aim. For that we want to be free of contradictions. But what would be our immediate aim? What is lying within us that can only come out if we are free of contradictions? I think last year I talked about it. I touched upon it last year. If somebody remembers. I called it the art of seeing two. The art of seeing two, not seeing one. We see one. We are stuck with one in life. One end of the pendulum, one extreme. Right? So I said within all of us is something called conscience. Vivek, conscience. And that conscience is hidden, it's very, very far away. And the only way we can awaken that conscience, that sleeping conscience within us, is if we are free of contradictions. And as we work and observe this whole layer of contradictions within us, slowly we will start seeing something within us which awakens. Something will awaken, and that is conscience. Right? એટલે આપણી અંદર એક વિવેકની શક્તિ છે. એ વિવેકની શક્તિ અત્યારે છુપાયેલી છે. જેમ આપણે ક્યાંક ખાડો ખોદીએ આપણા ગાર્ડનની અંદર, અને શું કહેવાય, એક સોનાથી ભરેલું એક
ચાલુ
રાઈટ. એટલે ઈચ્છા કરું કે એવું તમે કંઈ ખોદો. એવી રીતે આપણી અંદર ક્યાંય પડેલું છે અને એને જગાડવાનું છે. એ વિવેક શક્તિ છે, વિવેકની શક્તિ. And this conscience is the first feeling of truth. હવે સત્યનું એક અંદર સંવેદના નહીં કહું, પણ એક જાતની લાગણી થાય છે, એક જાતનો ભાવ થાય છે સત્યનો. It is the first feeling of truth. It is the first feeling that in life everything is one. The oneness of everything. Now, the dictionary definition of the word conscience is an aptitude, faculty, an intuition or a judgment that assists in distinguishing right from wrong. Right from wrong. So the dictionary definition is more on the side of morality. Morality. Right? In spirituality, conscience is something totally different. It has nothing to do with morality. It has everything to do with truth, with consciousness. Now, have I talked about ABC influences? Yes? I've touched upon it, or have I talked about it?
No, just touched on it.
Just touched on it. I'll just touch on it again. There are three kinds of influences in life. The lowest influence we will call as A influence. A influence is mechanical in its source, mechanical in its understanding. A influence, એ જ્યારે ઉપલબ્ધ થાય છે, જ્યારે એ ઇન્ફ્લુઅન્સ જીવનમાં નખાય છે, ત્યારે એ યાંત્રિક છે, એ સમજવામાં એ યાંત્રિક છે. That is A influence. Mechanical in source, mechanical in expression, in understanding. Whatever we do in life is mechanical because there is no consciousness. Whether it is our art, whether it is our poetry, right? It is all A influence. All our literature, all our magazines, it is all A influence. It has been created by mechanical people. This A influence is a part of life. Then in life there is something which is very deep only with those people who have understood the mystery of life, those whose level of consciousness has risen to that level where they have now understood the laws behind everything in life. And when they say something, it is C influence. It is conscious in its source. But those C influences cannot be understood normally by man. And so they have to be put down to a little lower level that man can understand them. So they become B influence. B influence is conscious in its source but can be mechanical in its understanding, in its expression. It can be mechanical. These ideas which I am giving to you have come from a conscious source, so they have come from a C influence, but when I am transmitting them to you, they become B influence. They become mechanical. C influence can only be directly transmitted by the Guru to his chosen disciples. It is something which can only be done in a very close-knit community. But once it goes out of the community, it goes into the masses, it becomes B influence. But still, their original was conscious. Now, when this inner conscience starts awakening within us, what would it do? What would it do? What would it do? It gives us the capacity to recognize which influences are A influences and which influences are B influences. And maybe at a later level it gives us the capacity to recognize C influence also. So this conscience is a very important thing. It's buried within us. We can take the same definition from the dictionary. It is the aptitude, the faculty, the intuition that assists in distinguishing between A, B and C influences. Not between right and wrong. Not between right and wrong. Which influence is going to lead us to a higher state of consciousness and which influence is going to take us deeper into the sleep, the hypnosis of life. That inner discriminating capacity, that is called as vivek. That is called as conscience. The feeling of truth. What has been the experiment to transmit C influence through B influences throughout man's history? What experiments have been done? Which experiments? What do we call those experiments as? Very simple, very, very simple. Religion. Religion. The whole effort of religion was that there is a C influence which is conscious in its origin, conscious in its expression, but that cannot be transmitted directly to man. To take those conscious influences and transmit them in a way that man makes an effort to rise to C influence, to understand C influence. But when a religion is made, that they take the C influences, they become B influences, but everything gets what you call colored by the personality of the person who transmits it. And unless we have this conscience inside, we will not be able to separate the personality from the teaching. Try to understand in simple terms. Forget all the big religions. Just a simple guru and disciple. You forget all the big religions just now. Supposing my teacher was against forming an ashram, against having a school for teaching his ideas, right? Now it is for me as the disciple to see whether that is a part of his personality or is it a part of the teaching. You understand what I'm trying to say? Now if I feel it is a part of his personality, I may say, okay, I won't have a rigid ashram, but I need a place where I want to transmit these ideas, and I may build an ashram. But what will all the old students of the teacher say? Those who have not been able to take the step into a higher state of consciousness, they will say he is going against the teacher. And can you understand what I'm trying to say? Is that the C influence has to be taken out of the personality of the person who has transmitted it. And this is the problem with all religions. The personality of the person who has transmitted it becomes a kind of imitating ideas. We have a whole hippie movement in the 60s and 70s. Everybody wanted to grow a beard like Christ. Right? But by imitating that person, you cannot rise to the level of consciousness of that person. So, all religions, they were made to transmit C influence as B influence, but they got colored by the people who are transmitting them. And then the people who understood them, they were so mechanical that they made a dogma out of it. They made a kind of rigid teaching out of it. And the whole aim of rising in consciousness was lost. And that is where religions have succeeded also and failed also. Yeah.
When the C influence gets colored by the personality of the person translating it from the C to B, then the person in B, how does he separate that personality from the C influence coming down? Is it a feeling?
That is why this conscience has to grow in a person. So we all have that hidden distinguishing capacity, and that we have to, it's lying within us. We have to just go through this whole mud of contradictions.
So that's a very long way because we're not anywhere near.
No, it's not a very long way. It's an understanding. This very what we are talking brings the beginning of understanding. Right? So, personality is a personal truth. It has nothing to do with the teaching. It has nothing to do with the teaching. But when the personality becomes a dogma, then all sorts of problems start arising. Right? And people can also kill others for not accepting their truth. Not accepting their truth. Now, what would this mean in terms of conscience? What would this mean in terms of, supposing I can kill somebody, I can be aggressive with somebody, I can be violent with somebody, just so that he accepts my idea of what is truth. What? And definitely it's going to give me a very good feeling if somebody accepts it. It's going to give me a very good feeling. What does it say of conscience? That there are two types of conscience. One, the real conscience which is buried within us, hidden within us, and one, the false conscience which is a part of our false personality. And we must observe that. We must observe that. All of us have ideas of what is right and what is wrong. What is spiritual and what is not spiritual. What is sin and what is virtue. We all have, and all those are a result of our conditioning. They have nothing to do with truth. That they all have to go. Till the false go, how will the real come? Yeah.
You said just now, some people are willing to kill somebody else for not accepting their truth. Isn't it for not accepting their dogma, not the truth?
Their dogma, yeah, sorry, the dogma, right. Absolutely. What I'm trying to say, we all have a false conscience. So his conscience is telling him that you force this person to accept my truth. And if that person accepts, his conscience gives him a good feeling that he has done something very good. He's hypnotized by that feeling inside. There is a feeling of meritoriousness. And we have to observe that. It happens everywhere. Right?
Is that like a manipulation?
No, it is our false conscience. It is our false conscience.
If someone's trying to make you accept what they have said, then they're trying to manipulate your conscience.
No, it is, they are acting out of a false conscience. Suppose, forget all that, if I'm accepting, I may not be so aggressive. But supposing I learn that somebody who is a Christian is studying Hinduism or Vedanta, right? Does it give me a good feeling of goodness inside? False conscience. False conscience. This is what I'm trying to say. Forget me trying to convert somebody, anything, right? But I just hear somebody who is has a Christian upbringing, and suddenly that person is teaching Vedanta, right? Or trying to study Vedanta, right? And it gives me a good feeling. Definitely it is that inner attitude inside that Vedanta is right and Christianity is wrong. You see? And that is a false sense of right and wrong. And it comes through our condition. It comes through our condition. I go to one temple in Riverside every year. I go for 3 days and I speak there. It's about 80 miles from Los Angeles. And the priest of that temple is a white person. And the way he speaks Sanskrit slokas and, as if, maybe he knows better than many of the Indian priests also. But you see, the people who come there, for that it becomes something of the ego. Can you understand? They can't see that their happiness is coming from a false sense of what is right and what is wrong. So this false conscience has to go. It has to go. And it manifests in small things. Small things. My daughter will say, I like a guy of another caste, another religion, another this. And I'll feel upset inside. False conscience. False feeling of what is right and wrong. And if she changes her, then it will give me a feeling of merit inside. Oh, I have done something good. In real conscience, there is no feeling that I have done something good. So the false conscience gives us a feeling that I am better than somebody, I am more right than somebody. Other people are inferior to me, they are wicked to me, and then of course the end comes where I say they have to be killed. And that's the end of the matter. Right? All this comes from my mechanical conscience, from my mechanical vivek. Right? समझाए कि गुजराती करो समझाए ये जो कहीं पढ़े
खाली खाली आना
के जो है मान एक दिवस आवे ने 5 दिवस ને આવો તો મજા આવે બસ પણ આ જે શક્તિ છે ને મારે કામ એ જોરદાર છે હું તમને જોઉં ને તો એ શક્તિ મને બોલવામાં આવે બસ એ થોડું અહીંયા ઘટે ઓરા હું જોઉં ને હમણાં કોઈકનું માથું કાપી નાખે So as we observe inside with self-observation, as this false conscience slowly withers away and we uncover something which is real. Now what will be the characteristic of something which is real inside? What will be the characteristic? The first basic character, it has to be universal. It has to be universal. It cannot change with caste. It cannot change with color. It cannot change with race. It cannot change with religion. Anything that can change from religion to religion is a part of the false. Try to understand, because this is very important, because the child is still in the mother's womb. In the 7th month, all the racial characteristics come in, even before he is born. He is imprinted with all the racial characteristics of where he is going to be born. He doesn't even realize it. The child doesn't even know that all these characteristics have come in at the 7th month and he is going to be born with all these patterns. So they are very, very strong, and in some races they are very, very strong. So real truth cannot change for anyone. If one religion says you have to eat this and another religion says you cannot eat this, then both are wrong. Both are wrong. If one religion says you have to wear this and another religion says you cannot wear this, both are wrong. Truth has to be the same. And when the real conscience starts rising within us, suddenly we see the oneness in everything, and everything else which is not a part of that oneness, which divides, will fall away automatically. That is real conscience, real vivek. It will speak the same for everyone. And if such a conscience can rise in everyone, can there be violence any longer? Not possible. It's not possible. Because then we see the oneness in everything. So this conscience is lying within us, but personality and false personality have covered it up, and it gives us a wrong feeling of I, a wrong feeling of what is right and what is wrong. Something cannot be right for one religion and wrong for another religion. It's not possible. There can be preferences, but preferences don't have aggressiveness behind them. Some religion may be following a certain technique. Right? Some religions may like to go with a what you call circular staircase. Some religion may like to go with bigger steps. Some religion want to go with smaller steps. But they're all going to lead to the same hall. The staircase is different. And some staircases you may need to take a tonic to go over. And some staircases are small. Why do you need a tonic? Right? So then this person's eating style and this person's eating style is different because the shape of the stairs are different. But how does it become a truth? It has nothing to do with the truth. We don't realize that there are different staircases and they all lead to one pathway. And as long as we are stuck on the staircase, we have not even started walking on the pathway. On the pathway, there are no religions. It is purely a spiritual science. There are no religions over there. The religion takes you to the path. So, we observe these contradictions within us, we observe the multiple eyes within us, and we start seeing the opposites within us, the contradictions within us. આપણી અંદરના વિરોધો આપણી નજરની સામે આવવા જોઈએ. તો આ વિવેકની જાગૃતિ થશે. બાકી આ વિવેક છુપાયેલું રહેશે. These patterns are so powerful, though they keep us asleep. It is so difficult. It is so difficult. Now, on the first day of we talked about self-observation. What did we say about the anger? Do you remember what we said about the anger? That I am angry on him. Now I moved inside. And I see that I am in a state of anger. Now, when I was angry on him, I disliked him. I disliked him. When I see that I am in anger, whom do I dislike now? I. Right? Of course, I have divided myself into I and it, I and Rajan. Right? So I is seeing that Rajan is angry and I is saying I don't like it. Just in the same way that Rajan was angry, I was saying I don't like him. Now, this is a big change when we start our self-observation. Right? Now, what is going to happen? Right? Supposing one day he comes and meets me and he talks such beautiful words with me. And I say, he's such a good person. Such a nice person. And the next day he comes and he uses harsh language, rude words. And I'll say, oh, I made a mistake in understanding this person. Right? The same way, what will happen in our self-observation? Try to take this inside. Try to take this inside. What will happen? Now we are approaching our contradictions. We are approaching our contradictions. I am saying Rajan is angry. Okay, now you call Rajan for lunch at your home. So such a nice Rajan will come. I'll shave and be so polite. Right? Even if he does not like the food, he'll say, what good food. He likes the food. Right? Okay. Now, supposing I am observing that Rajan, and suddenly we are going in a car somewhere and somebody's car is parked badly, and the same Rajan, I say, gets angry on that person, says all kinds of words to that person. How can you park your car like this? Don't you have any manners? You have no consideration for somebody else, etc., etc., etc. All kinds of words. Right? Now suddenly we are inside ourselves. What will happen? What will the observing eye say? What will the observing eye say? Try to tell. It will say, at your home he was so nice, and here, is it the same person? I can't trust this person. Yesterday he was so good to me, and today he came and said all kinds of words to me. I can't trust this person. Suddenly I am looking at myself in the same way. I am saying, this guy is here also and here. He's at both ends of the pendulum. Can you see what I'm trying? And suddenly the two contradictions which I did not see till now. Because when I came to your house, I was hypnotized by you. I wanted to give such a good face in front of you. I was hypnotized with that thought. And there I was hypnotized by somebody parking the car in front. In both states, I could not see I am the same person. Can we understand this? The wall was there in between. This wall is what Gurdjieff calls as a buffer. Buffer. We don't see ourselves as we really are. Because one side buffers the other side. Like the railway carriages, they have a buffer so that when you're traveling, they bang against each other, you don't feel the shock. When I'm at your home and I'm laughing and talking with you, what a good boy am I. What a lovely person am I. So kind and so considerate towards other people. And I have such a rosy picture of myself that I forget what I did yesterday when his car was parked in front of me. I forget it. I'm on this side of the wall. And now we want to break these walls, and it's very, very painful. It is very painful. This is where our suffering starts. And this is conscious suffering. The breaking of these walls. Yeah.
If that person that had parked the car that way was someone known to you, would you have acted the same way?
Where?
The person who had parked the car that way.
May not have.
No, if you knew it, would you have acted the same way?
No way. I would have shown my good face. And if it was my son,
then you would have taken it out.
I would have told him that, see, you do it better next time. But if it was your son, can you see, we want to see these contradictions. We want to see it is the same person. And is it really the same person? Is it really the same person? And we don't have to do anything about it. The very fact that we observe it and throw light upon it, we are free of it. That very understanding makes us free of it. See, for years we have lived so wrongly, finding fault with other people, blaming other people, blaming them for what they believe in. We have indulged in all our weaknesses. We have always pretended to be what we are not. We have been daydreaming all the time. We have been lying all the time. He was reminding me of a conversation with his father. His father, all his life he had spoken the truth. He had never spoken a untruth. So, when I went to meet him, he was pretty old. I suppose he was over 80 or something. Over 80. And he was already a little ill at that time. In bed. So, his whole life he had worshipped Krishna, his father. And I told him that, now you say the word Ram. So, he said that, won't it be saying an untruth? Am I not lying? Am I not lying? So I asked him that, have you ever spoken the truth? So he's looking at me. He's looking at me. Because his whole life he had only spoken the truth. I said, have you ever spoken the truth? So I said, is the I a truth or an untruth? The I, the ego, is it a truth or an untruth? So he said, this is an untruth. So I said, whatever the I has done throughout your life is an untruth, it's a lie. And he understood. He understood that our whole lives we have done nothing but lying. Because that I is false. We don't know what the real I is. And everything that has been done by a false I. That very I is a lie. Whether it speaks the truth or the untruth, what difference does it make? Unless that I dissolves. And that can only dissolve through self-observation. That is the only way. People come and talk to me about surrendering to some guru or something. But if the false I, how can it surrender? Unless you observe that I. The only way. And they have photos of their guru in their homes. Wherever I go, there are photos, and they'll say, I follow this guru. And they'll have a big mala on the photo and all that. So I said, when your wife gets angry, do you see your guru in your wife? Or do you get irritated? Right? He says, no, I get irritated. I said, what is the point of surrendering? You know nothing, throw away this photo. There's no meaning at all. No meaning. Surrender means every moment you're a student of surrender. Each moment in life, the false is manifesting, the ego is manifesting, you're observing it from far and you're letting it die. It's a very difficult thing to surrender. How will you surrender without an observing eye? How will you surrender? Then it will be, that surrender will just be a lie as everything else in our life is just a lie. So these patterns are very powerful, they keep us asleep. These are contradictions within ourselves. And as this new conscience starts developing, its very perception is always seeing two. Always seeing two. The minute I say I like this, at the same time I see I also dislike. I can like and I can dislike. It doesn't matter what. It does not matter what. Can you see why there are no positive emotions in our life? Because everything in our life has an opposite. I am so good to you, but I am so bad to him. I am talking about. He has these two sides. And unless that changes, that can only change through observing it. Somewhere we feel good, somewhere we feel unpleasant. So over a long period of time, we see these different contradictions within us. And they dissolve. And when they dissolve, there's a big sense of inner freedom. These are the chains which are binding us. Suddenly the opposites come together. Badhai virodho ave ek thai jasa. Dvait mati advait. One of the techniques which the Guru used to use, he would try to show the student his opposite side. He would put him in situations where the opposite side would manifest. Right? And the student has to be very, very, on his toes. He has to be very alert, because the Guru is going to use these kind of ways. Now, I just give one example. That I spent 7 years with Ram Dulare Bapu. He was my Guru. And one of the things we used to do is I used to drive him everywhere. Right? So I was his driver. Sarthi. Right? And once we went on a very, very long trip. And the trip had gone beautifully. And I was feeling so good with myself that I had taken good care of him and everything had gone so well. Then we stopped at somebody's place in Vapi, and from Vapi we were driving to Bombay. And in Vapi, another car joined us, and there was somebody else in that car. And Bapu, instead of sitting in the car which I was driving, went and sat in his car. Then after some time he stopped both the cars and he said, "You just come here. You don't know how to change the gears. Why don't you learn from him?" Now you see, the student has to be very careful, because he has this feeling of, I've done something very good and I feel I'm such a good person because I've taken care of him and all that. And suddenly, and in that if I get irritated, in that if I feel resentment inside, that how can he do this to me? I took so good care of him, right? The Guru throws the stone, and in that the opposite side comes up, and we observe. We observe. And in that we are free. And that is the right technique of the Guru, but not the Gurus today. This afternoon, somebody showed me a tape, film of one Guru giving some lecture. Right? And just behind his chair all the wall was plastered with photos of him. The wall was plastered with photos of him. I said, oh my. Not today's Gurus. They are symbols of self-love. Symbols of self-love. But there was a day when this was there. So the Guru tries to create situations where the disciple is suddenly thrown into his opposite side. And Ram Dulare Bapu was an expert in this. I can give you instances and instances. So they shock us, and when they shock us, we feel suddenly the buffer has broken for some time, and we see the two sides. It is unless we can see our two sides, we will not become whole inside. We will not become one inside. And unless we become one inside, we will not see the oneness of everything. The oneness. We have to become one inside. But we are holding so many contradictions. So now our next step in self-observation is to keep on observing our contradictions. Later we will come to a state where we are on one side of the pendulum, we can see the opposite side. What would this mean? What would this mean? Yeah, but what would it mean? That supposing I'm at your home, we are happy and joking and everything, and I'm observing the I which is feeling happy and all that. I'm observing this, and suddenly I know that this very situation is going to invite the opposite. Can you see? It is just round the corner. It is just round the corner. And now I'm observing from far that opposite can't affect me in any way. It's not, yeah. But if I'm hypnotized with that, the minute the opposite comes, I'm going to suffer. Now it can't do anything to me. So seeing from far, I know that Rajan is happy over here, it is one thing, but something is round the corner. This very happiness is going to invite the other end of the pendulum. It has to swing. There is no other law. He's not yet free of that law of the pendulum. Something is going to come. Some other incident is going to come. That other end has to manifest itself through some incident in life, some event in life. Then that event in life, we have already forecasted from the future. We know how can it, bring us any form of suffering. Can you see? We slowly get a kind of inner taste, an inner taste. We know that we are doing this is going to come. We know we are doing this is going to come. And suddenly we see the game in the whole thing. So many things will drop, so much of lying will drop, so much of pretending will drop in our life. And we get an inner taste, ek swad aause of the real. Between these two opposites, there is something real in life, and that is conscience. Yeah.
So Guruji, if you meet in an accident, so that's one end of the pendulum that you experience, but you had invited it because you experienced something else before, and now you're just meeting the accident on the other end. So if you meet in an accident, so that's one end of the pendulum.
Last year we had talked of 4 levels of karma. Right? The lowest level we call the law of accident. A little higher the level we called our law of cause and effect. So consciousness means that every time there is an accident in our life, we turn it into the law of cause and effect. We rise one step. It may have come in the form of an accident, but we rise one step. Supposing I fail in the exam and I go into depression, then that exam has become an accident. You get what I'm trying to say? That exam has become an accident. Right? Supposing he invites me for dinner and he has not prepared anything and I get upset, then his invitation has become an accident. You get it? In life. Right? If I want to reach somewhere and I'm stuck in traffic, then that traffic, if I get upset and start complaining, then that traffic has become an accident. So every moment in our life, the event can be an accident. It depends on how I react to the event. How I react to the event. So the basic law is we cannot change the events of our lives, we can change our reactions to the events of our lives. the event can be the same for two different people, but for one it can be an accident, for one it can be cause and effect. Cause and effect, right? So the two of us, both of us failed in the exam, but one went into depression, but one understood, okay, why I have failed. He used that failure to rise to a higher level. He sowed a seed of a new cause, creating a new effect. So that he was not under the law of accident, he was under the law of cause and effect. The event was the same to two people. The event was the same. Right? We talked about this last year. I'm just repeating it. You're realizing. So it is not that an accident has happened in my life. Right? It is whether I have reacted to it as an accident or I have used it to sow a new seed for something in the future. For that I need consciousness, because I have to pause the original reaction which is happening through all my set patterns, happening through all my habitual structure, all the inlaid attitudes that I have. I'm going to react, I'm going to complain, I'm going to blame, I'm going to say, if only this had happened, if only I had left home 5 minutes earlier, or whatever. Can you understand? Right? So then I have gone into the law of accident. But can I transform that accident into something higher? Right? Similarly happens with the death. Somebody close to me dies. Do I go into depression? Right? Do I fall from that? And it is an accident. It is an accident. Somebody close to me dies. I understand the science of death. I use the science of death to rise in consciousness. There is no accident for me. So these two levels are always with us. Every events in life come, they have their own science. Their own science. We cannot blame the event. Blaming the event is only asking for repetition of the event. Can you get it? At that very moment I'm sowing the seed that you please come again in my life. If we are blaming the event. But if we see that it was something within us which attracted an event, and you see, we take the event as the ultimate form. That something in us was going to attract something. It took the event in this form is a different matter, whether a car accident, whether my falling down the steps, whatever form. Right? That is a different matter. But it was going to attract something. And it is only when we are able to see both sides of the pendulum, and that will happen through self-consciousness, through self-observation. Suddenly we see this very situation which I am disliking him, I am blaming him, I am getting angry on him, is going to invite the same situation. Okay. It has to. And then I say, can I be free of this? And the first thing I realized, the only way to be free of it is change your reaction to it. Change your reaction. Because it is your reaction which is tying you to the event, which is binding you to the event. This is called karma. This is called karma. There are invisible bonds between something within me and the event which has come to meet me. Right? Only consciousness can see those bonds and be free of them. And then I don't invite the same event again. And if the event comes again, then it will never come in the form of an accident. Everything changes in our life. Because so many things were going to come to meet this person in life, but they were going to come because of this person's reactions to life. Now those reactions no longer exist. You have gone somewhere else. So all those things are not going to come to meet you again. They cannot come because the person to whom they were going to come to meet is no longer there. The patterns have changed. Okay, it's already 9 o'clock. I'll just talk about one more small thing. I'll continue this tomorrow. We did talk about the 4 states of consciousness. Many times, accidentally, we do have a sense of the 3rd state of consciousness, Jagruti, awakened state. And for certain moments, we do feel that as if there is no feeling of time, we are not identified with anything, all our troubles are so far away, all our problems are lying so much below us, and we are floating in air. Of course, we have not reached this state through self-observation, so we cannot own this state, right? But as we are observing ourselves, suddenly flashes of this state will come. And that will be the beginning of real conscience. That real conscience now will tell us what is right and what is wrong, but not in normal conditioning, something of a different order. Something related to consciousness. Something related to truth. Like I said yesterday, we have to change our way of thinking. So tomorrow I'll go into observation of thoughts. We don't want those thoughts to hypnotize us. So we'll go into that a little tomorrow. Continue this. Any other questions? Anyone? Yeah.
Can you please explain the term jihad?
The term?
Jihad.
Jihad. What is the meaning of the word jihad?
What I understand it's to promote truth by being violent or to kill, promote truth to maintain truth.
That cannot be the original meaning of the word. It cannot be the original meaning of the word. Because truth and violence cannot go together. Truth and violence cannot go together. Violence and false conscience can go together. My false feeling of truth. Right? My misunderstood feeling of truth. I'm not using the word understanding because there's no understanding. Right? But I have a feeling of truth. Conscience is the feeling of truth, but it is false. It is created out of my upbringing, created out of my society, created out of the patterns I am born with. It is created out of the attitudes which are inlaid very early in my life. And out of that, I have a sense of truth, a feeling of truth which is totally wrong. It is created out of all this. And the real feeling of truth can only come when I'm naked of all this. I've dropped all this. And out of that comes a feeling that I have. But I think jihad means to sacrifice. I'm not very sure, but I think it means to sacrifice. Right? And there's a false feeling that sacrifice means violence. Sacrifice means violence. But real truth and violence can never go together. It's not possible. It's not possible. When the real conscience starts speaking within us, it is never aggressive. If it is aggressive, then it is not conscience. Conscience is the first feeling of truth. It always speaks in whispers. It cannot speak loudly. And that is why if all the eyes are chattering inside, we never hear it. It's a false understanding of what is truth. The truth is lying there somewhere. But again, we don't use the word, a false feeling of truth. We won't use the word. Understanding is a beautiful thing. We won't use the word understanding. It's a false feeling. He has come to some conclusion through some feeling that I am doing something good. I am doing something which is right. In truth, there is never the feeling that I am doing right. I am doing right is always with the ego. Can you understand? If real truth, there can never be a feeling that I have done something meritorious. I have earned some merit. You get? If that is the feeling inside, then it is not truth. In truth, that feeling also goes away. Yeah.
So yesterday you spoke about Newton's law.
Yeah.
Is that effective on all four stages of consciousness?
No. No. It is only where you cannot see the third state of consciousness, where you cannot see the third force. Right? So in our state we don't even see the second force. The second force. Second force is the obstacles which come in my life. I will tell you, will you do this exercise? Right? And because you've listened to me and you feel, oh, it's so good, you will say, okay, I'm going to do it from tomorrow. But you cannot see the second force. Right? On the third day, you're going to be called for a marriage. Right? And you'll have to get up early in the morning and you'll say, forget the exercise today. But that was already there on the first day. But you could not see it. Right? So, that where your very saying of that, I will do the exercise, had already invited that. That is Newton's law. But we could not see it. Right? But when we are observing inside, we say, okay, this I has said yes, but we know there is another I over here who is going to tomorrow say, I cannot do it. We see both the forces together inside. And that is why self-observation is the third force. It is that which balances both the forces. Then you will tell me that, okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow morning and I'm going to try to do it every day, but I'm pretty sure that problems are going to come. But in spirit, I will try to do it. And you won't tell me, oh, I will not miss a single. You get what I'm trying to say? You won't talk from an extreme. You'll start talking from the middle. Right? And truth is always in the middle. Right? And if people are talking from the extreme, they are still hypnotized from within. Jihad is always from the extreme. Extreme. It cannot be truth. But I'll look up the meaning today. I'll look up the meaning today. There must be a deeper meaning. There must be a deeper, what do you call it, meaning, understanding of that word, jihad. It can't mean what we see with our today.
So my understanding of jihad is actually a holy war. It's very similar to the way you explain the eyes. It's an internal battle to get to that state of...
Very good, beautiful, beautiful. The inner struggle between yes and no. Yes and no. Some eyes are pulling me into a negative state. I am saying no to them. The minute I say yes to them, I become negative. That inner struggle. Very beautiful.
So the problem is that people look from external point of view, so then they get hypnotized.
No, they look at it from point A.
Yeah. So it is not an understanding, it is a misunderstanding. Yeah. Okay. We'll stop over here. Thank you very much. Jai Shri Krishna.
Yes.
What do you want to do today? You want to continue what we were doing yesterday, or you want to ask some questions? He has a question, but I'll have to call my mother and take her advice a little on that question. So I'll take it tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I read a statement that by a Western psychologist that the psyche of people in the West and the psyche of people in the East are divided by different lines. And he had a quote on yoga basically saying that the goal of yoga is to dissolve the ego into the unconscious. And he basically felt that for Western people, that is just not something that's very healthy. So my question is quite simple, is that ego is defined in the West as the center of consciousness, and you've spoken about dissolving the ego. So what is your definition of the ego, and why do we need to dissolve
it? Two different what do you call kind of cultures, civilizations. The West always learned by taking attention outside. When you take attention outside, science is born. So the accumulation of knowledge which has come in the West has come through science. And however much science is objective, it is not self-knowledge. Now, it has its, what do you call, good points and bad points, negative points. The whole of civilization, the growth of science, the, what we call, the technological state we are in today is because of the West, because of attention going outside. Whilst in India or in the Eastern tradition was that attention should first go inside. There should be self-knowledge. So when the scientist is exploring something, the laboratory is in front of his senses. When the Rishi is exploring something, he's trying to calm down the senses, separate from the senses and move inside. This state of separation from the senses is what is called as pratyahar. Prati means reverse, ahar means food. Taking the attention back. Taking the attention back. Right? So there was a separation from the senses. Or you can say in another way, there is outer senses and inner senses. And each outer sense had an inner sense, and the whole Eastern tradition was to develop. Because of that, there was a big neglect of the material side of life. Whilst in the West, there was a great development of the material side of life. Now, before there can be, in today's world, not in the world of the old, I mean in the world of the old you took your attention in, it was a different world. Right? The king ruled. The king in the Eastern tradition always worshipped those who were moving on the path of spirituality. So the king had a guru, anybody in orange clothes was revered. Right? So it was a different world where it was okay to just move in. You could live in a small hut somewhere. You did not have to bother about your material needs. The society took care of you. Right? The whole of the growth in the West was of material. Now, a point comes that do we have to balance both of them? Right? Because each one has its weak points. And if you see society in the West, first came political freedom, then comes economic freedom, and then only comes the chance of spirituality. Whilst in the Eastern tradition there was no political freedom. The king ruled. You understand what I'm trying? But for the West to go into spirituality, supposing you have a communist country, then there is no what you call possibility for spirituality to grow. So the first thing would be political freedom. The second thing would be economic freedom. Unless your material needs are satisfied, you won't think of taking the attention in. If you still had to, you're still struggling to pay your bills, you're still struggling to do everything, just get the basic needs in life, there's no economic freedom, then you would not take the attention in. And this has all come from the West. This was not there in the Eastern tradition. But the Eastern tradition did not bother about the outside. And then so many religions grew up in India which totally ignored the material side of life, as if it was a sin to go into materiality. Right? A person who was in spirituality must live in a hut, he must wear the minimum of clothes, he must not have any material comforts, etc. So the pendulum swung from one end to the other end, and there was a complete indifference towards the material side of life, which was also a very big imbalance, a very big imbalance. Maybe some rishi, he had achieved that inner truth, right? And he ignored the material side of life. But you cannot expect that from your disciples. I remember one very, very famous Jain Muni who has huge institutes, learning institute. He died, and he has them in Ahmedabad, in Surat, and he was very famous, very, very active in the movement for stopping cow slaughter in India. Now, in the Jains, they take diksha, that is, they leave the material life at a very early age. So he was very ill, this Muni, and somebody who knew him, I mean one of his disciples, they must have been coming to some of my talks. So he says, will you come and meet him? So I went. He was in a very, very bad state, so there was nothing I could do. I just sat there, and so then I sat for 5 minutes and then I left. And when I came down, I don't know what I said to him, but some disciple must have sent some message down. Right? And about 50 to 75 of his disciples, they have to wear those white clothes. They leave life, they've renounced life. They caught me and they made me sit there, and they said that we are getting thoughts of sex all the time. Now, can you see the contradiction? Can you see the contradiction? Right? The basic energy of life, due to tradition, the tradition of going into sannyas, going into diksha at an early age, you're suppressing that energy. Right? The minute you suppress that energy, that doesn't suppress the daydreaming of that energy. You get what I... Suppression of sex does not suppress sexuality. Right? On the contrary, if you are free of sexuality, the sex energy becomes pure. Then it is no longer a victim of excitement. Right? So they caught me and they said, we are getting these thoughts, you teach us some technique to be free of them. So this was with the East. With the East there was initially the rishis, and the rishis who lived in the old days, they were married, they had children, right? And I shouldn't be going into it, but when you study the Mahabharata and all, it was a very different society in those days. And the rishi, supposing he was going on a trip somewhere, he would tell one of his disciples that supposing my wife feels the need in this time when I am not there, then you please do fulfill her needs. You see? So it was a different society, a different... But then it went to one extreme and ignore materiality. People have to go into, they cannot get married, etc., etc. And that created a kind of pathological condition. The West was the opposite, more materialism, right? Instead of what you call balance in the sex act, let us have free sex, right? And they went to the other extreme. And now the human consciousness has come to a state where both have to merge with each other. The Eastern tradition of the attention going in has to meet the Western tradition of the attention going out. And both must be done together. Spirituality has to be scientific. It has to be scientific. There cannot be one remedy for everyone. Right? A certain person is working on his sex energy, then he may abstain from sex for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, whatever. Right? But that is for a specific purpose. But just because he has abstained and maybe he has achieved something through that abstaining, he cannot ask somebody else to abstain unless he teaches him a way of balancing that energy. Okay? Get what I'm saying? So, there are two different egos. The Western ego was the ego of having more, enjoying more, right? And the Eastern ego grew out of what you call how much you can tyag, what will you call? Renounce. How much you can renounce. And both the egos are egos. Both the egos. Whether you renounce or whether you indulge. They are both opposite sides of the pendulum. So, I think in the last, say 50, 100 years, the new teachers of spirituality which have come, especially my teacher, right? They are, whatever they have taught is a balance of the East and West. You don't have to renounce life, you don't have to leave your job, you don't have to leave your family, and you balance the material comforts of life with the inner renunciation. You use the material comforts of life with the understanding of renunciation, with the understanding of what is indulgence and where indulgence can take you. And this is a completely new spirituality which has not been practiced till now. And that is what I'm trying to convey in my talks. Right? So, there is an ego, and the ego has a certain purpose. The ego has a certain purpose. The ego is formed from the emotional center, right? And it has a purpose of telling the inner intelligence how it labels something. Whether something is nice or it is not nice. Whether something is comfortable or not comfortable. The problem that happened is that with this liking, disliking, the ego also got identified. And there was a state of hypnosis and there was desire for repetition. This is the beginning of karma. Right? All karma starts with a desire of repetition. If I am enjoying something, there is desire of repetition. If I am suffering something, there is desire of not repetition, which is again desire of repetition. You understand? And it is in this that the seed of karma was born, the seed of desire. I sow the seed that I want this again, I don't want this again. And with that, all these laws which I talked about, the law of reverse effect, etc., etc. So, dissolving the ego is true, very, very true. Right? But to dissolve the ego, first you have to form a new ego. And that new ego is formed for the specific purpose of dissolving the ego. Right? Because only that new ego will organize your life. Right? It will tell you, if somebody has to learn the science of dissolving the ego. If you go into the wrong science, then you make a wrong ego. Right? You meet some guru who tells you, okay, now you have to have brahmacharya, you have to wear orange clothes, you have to wear this. Then you will be creating a new ego which will then be very difficult. At least the material ego of life has some authenticity. It is interested in the material comforts of life. It is attracted to excitement in life, etc., etc. But if you form a new ego, no, I am a saint, right? Then that ego is a dangerous ego. And that is what is there in all the ashrams in India, is these dangerous egos. Right? Terrible egos. Right? And what do you call? They sort of, see, I give you a bad word, I curse you. But I curse, I'll curse in a, what do you call, holier than thou way. I'll say, I curse the people who are indulging in sex. I'm cursing the people who are indulging in the senses. Can you see it is the same thing? It is the same thing. But I mean, these people are put on a pedestal. People bow down to them. Right? Can you see that the science of bowing down has been lost years ago? Why do we still bow down? You tell me one person who understands the science of bowing down. If you can't bow down inside, then why are you making it a tradition outside? This is all false. Right? It all becomes a part of the ego. Then the mother teaches the child, can you see the stupidity? The stupidity. Right? Just automatic mechanical tradition. Nobody is telling the child what is the science, what was the science in bowing down, why we did it, whether it is necessary in today's world, whether that science is still applicable or not. And you see these sick gurus, they'll put their feet out like this and people are coming and bowing. It's so terrible, it's so sick. They will ask people to wash their feet. Why? It has no place in today's world. It has absolutely no place in today's world. And let one of them explain the science of what it is. Spirituality has become sick in India. Sick. Today, the guru is nothing but a friend. Nothing but a friend. The friend next door. And in the friendship is such that he tells you step by step, okay. And he doesn't want to tell you what to do. He wants to tell you how to open your inner light so you know what to do. The guru is not a, what you call, direction, this thing that, okay, walk on this path. He wants you to open your inner light. Right? There must be an observing eye inside. If that observing eye is watching that the ego is in a state of anger. But I am not teaching you the science of an observing eye. I am telling you anger is bad. What is the point? What is the point? Right? And this is what is happening everywhere. Oh, the amount of gurus I've met in my life. One day, I can't talk about it on this. Big gurus. Big gurus. People who have temples and following all over the world and properties. And I've seen them in pitiable conditions. Pitiable conditions. What is the point? Right? So, you just create a new ego. That's all you do. So the ego is there, but the ego has a function, right? That is why I don't talk of the ego. I talk of the negative part of the emotional center. Right? The minute you purify the emotional center, you're free of the negative part. You've cut off that part. You've killed that part of the emotional center. Then what is left of the ego is the right ego. You need that much of an ego. If you're going in traffic, you need a policeman to tell you, stop this car and let this car go. You need a policeman inside who says that this has to go into the emotional center, this has to go into the intellectual center. We don't want these two. That is the whole real duty of the ego. Right? But somewhere the ego got hypnotized, it forgot its duty, it became the master. Right? And it is born in the emotional center, and because the emotional center is faster than the intellectual center, faster than the moving center, it rules our life. And we want to be free. So it's a very good phrase to use, dissolving the ego. Even I use it. It's a very good phrase to use. But somewhere I know inside that there is no total dissolving of the ego. We still need that part of the ego which polices the inner traffic. He has a duty to perform. It is an inner instrument. We don't want to kill the instrument. We want to get rid of the malfunctions of the instrument. Right? So, the Western tradition of taking attention outside, Eastern tradition of taking attention inside. Eastern then went to the other end of the pendulum, ignore the outside completely. Western went to the other end of the pendulum, ignore the inside completely. Eat, drink and be merry and enjoy life. Right? And real spirituality is a balance of the two. Balance. A modern spirituality. Right? See, the Bhakti movement in India was there for 800 years. And please understand, it was not an original Indian movement. Right? Because in India there was only Vedanta. Right? Then came Buddhism, etc., etc. Jainism. But before Islam, there was a whole group of what you call seekers who came from Babylon, who divided the God into the lover and they as the God as the loved and they as the lover. Right? They had that way of worshipping. It is the same thing as observing eye. Observing. But this was a beautiful way of doing it, a poetic way of doing it. Right? Through the heart center. And when Islam came, many of them were persecuted. And many of them changed into Islam. They absorbed Islam, holding on to their old traditions of worshipping the beloved. Right? And they became the Sufis. The Sufis. Right? Others came to India, and a lot of Sufi tradition came into India because many of the conquering kings who came into India, the Islam kings who came into India, they had Sufi gurus. And when they came, they brought their gurus. You can see that scene of Akbar. Akbar has no child, right? And he walks barefooted to Agra to meet this Saint Salim Chishti, right? And he asks for a child. Right? Now Akbar, in that state of helplessness, he asked for it. So all of them had these Sufi gurus. I don't know if you've been there, but it's a beautiful place. That his samadhi of Saint Salim Chishti. They brought this tradition that amalgamated with yoga, and in India it created what was called the Bhakti tradition, and that lasted for nearly 800 years. Beautiful tradition, right? And in that were all the great Bhakti yogis. In their this movement of God as the beloved and I as the lover. Right? They have not just written poetry, they have written deep spiritual science in there. When today's people write the bhajans, they are only writing poetry. There is no science in them. Can you understand? And when they sing those bhajans, sometimes it becomes so, I don't know, it's like self-pity. It's like self-pity. Can you understand? Because here, when Meera is talking of Meera Gasi Janmo Janam, I am the, what do you call, the servant, the slave. But she's talking of something totally different. And when I am singing it through self-pity. Can you understand? The person who is singing the bhajan has never achieved the state from which she sang it. She is singing it from that state of truth. When I am singing it from where my mechanical habits, patterns, and I am copying the people in the pictures, the movies. Right? I remember some years ago, there was this guy traveling all over the world. And he would, what you call, hypnotize people. And then he would tell some spirit to come into them. And he used to have these huge programs and thousands of people would gather and watch him. And he would say, okay, now Meera's spirit is coming in this person, and that person, suddenly hypnotized, would get up and start dancing. How pathetic can it be? Can you see? And imitation? Is imitation spirituality? Have you reduced it to this level? Can you understand? And a person who there's no inner transformation, no purification of the emotional center, the inner patterns are still the same, he's the same mechanical machine. You expect Meera to come into him? How is it possible? And he used to go everywhere, and there are thousands of people, and they are paying money to watch him. I don't know how it works. Really don't know how it works. So, it's a mess. It's a mess. So that is, with my teacher, it was normal life. Very normal life. And he would never ask anyone to give up their. I remember only once when he asked a few people that for 1 year, can you come and spend some time with me every day? And he told them at that time that if you have to give up your job for 1 year and you can do it, then please do it. But that was different. Right? That was different. His time was coming to an end. He wanted to do so many things. But normally, spirituality is not separate from normal life. Normal life. And we cannot have different paths today. The different paths. First is consciousness. Then in my relationship to people, bhakti. Right? In my understanding of sowing the seeds of actions, karma. Right? In my knowing the laws which are operating behind life, jnana. So all the paths now have to amalgamate into one path. Into one path. And this is unique, the new spirituality. Unique. Right? Not dissolving the ego, getting rid of the malfunctions of the ego, and the right use of the ego. Behind the ego is an instrument. Behind that there is consciousness. There is consciousness. So this is, we are trying to move towards that path. Right? You were saying something?
You answered it, Guruji, but you mentioned that the West has an outward experience, mainly the East, and there's a meeting now between, and that would bring on a new sort of spirituality, is it a new religion? And would you know what that would be?
Not a religion. It is normal life. It is normal life. Right? We have now understood the good points and bad points of religion. Today our brains have understood. Right? And we can take the good out of all the religions, right? And make something new out of it, which is not a religion. Which is just our daily life. Our daily life. It is a pure science. I teach you that these are the centers you are born with. Consciousness and the centers are together. Can you live your life in a way extracting consciousness? This is not a religion. It has nothing to do with a religion. I am not a guru. Right? I am just your friend. If you can curse your friend, you can curse me also. Right? There's absolutely no. This is all I'm teaching. That there is something called consciousness. That consciousness is God. That consciousness can be separated in the daily actions of our life. I'm thinking, I can separate consciousness. I'm feeling for my friend, I can separate consciousness. I'm moving, he's taking a run, he can separate consciousness. Does that affect the run he's taking? Maybe he'll do it better. Maybe he'll do it better. Can you see? Right? So, I'm eating my food, my instinctive center. Can I separate consciousness? With that, I'm giving you a science. A whole science, which is a very big science. I understand. It's very difficult to digest immediately. It takes time. It took me nearly 20 years since I first learnt about it. And there were times when I was so this thing that how can I understand all of this? How can I understand? Why can't it be simple? It is simple, but the intellectual part is there. And because today's brain needs that intellectual part, and we must mug up that intellectual part as we mug up tables. There is that intellectual part. Only then will we know. You see, I'm watching inside. I'm watching inside. And somebody comes and says some very good words, sweet words to me. And I see these praising eyes who love to be praised. They are trying to hypnotize me. Unless I know the science of eyes, how will I work on myself? Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So I'm trying to open up the science. It's a pure science. Later on, I'm going to relate it also to the traditional systems of yoga. I want to take breath science. I want to take the science of the chakras. I want to take the science of the nadis. I want to take the science of kundalini. But I want you to understand it in today's language, not in the traditional way. Right? So till I can impart this, till there is an observing eye inside, then I can talk of how the chakras, what is the kundalini, and what it means today in our life. I'm looking at you, is the kundalini rising or not rising? Can you understand? If I'm hypnotized by what you're saying, you have called me something and I'm hypnotized, then definitely no kundalini is rising. Whatever I do with Muladhara, Swadhisthana, all. Right? And if it is rising, it is creating some imbalance inside. You get it? So I want to later on, if I get a chance, to put this also how this was there in our traditional yoga. Right? But first I want this whole system which I'm trying to, all the paths I want to bring it to you. I want you all to start practicing. Practicing of double arrowed attention. Trying to hold two at the same time. Just now we are hypnotized by the one. Right? I'm listening to music, I'm hypnotized by the one. Can I divide that one into two? And then a real something beyond two will come, which is not even one but not two also. But that is something totally different. So, but everything, the key to everything is attention. The key to the whole spiritual journey is attention. Attention goes out, attention goes in. Attention has come from a very high source. As it moves in, it goes back to where it came from. This is all it is. What are the obstacles that don't allow the attention to go in? What are the attractions which hypnotize the attention into going out? These simple things. These are simple things, right? But we cannot even hold our attention for a fraction of a second. It slips away. It slips away. I want to also take some of the bhakti yogis. I want to talk a little bit about, especially if I get a chance, Meera, Ganga Sati, and if I get a chance also I would Narsi Mehta. These are the bhajans, the real bhakti yogis. In their each line is pure science, pure science. But till I am able to give you this structure, because when I talk about it, I want to relate it to your daily living, and that is the structure which I am trying to give you just now. That you have to make at least an intellectual effort to understand at each level. Right? What is attention? What are the centers? What is consciousness? Right? What is negative part, positive part? What are the eyes? With which petrol do the centers run? Because that petrol is again connected with Kundalini. Can you understand? So all this is a part of the science. Right? And it's such a modern thing which has been given to me. It is, you see, I could have very easily gone into some traditional system. But somehow this very rich system has been passed on. Nothing is mine. Whatever I'm talking about, nothing is mine. I have absolutely no trademark on anything. Can you understand? It's all a gift. It's all a gift. I'm just trying to share it with you. But if you can understand that much, then we can go much further. But this much of intellectual effort you have to put in. I don't know whether I answered your question or what I did.
So, Guruji, then, in the City Yoga, the people that lived in that time, their level of consciousness is obviously what we are trying to work towards. So those beings are different. So now, we still
but consciousness is so multi-dimensional, that now we are opening new dimensions. Consciousness is the same. We are looking at it through new dimensions, through the modern eyes, through the eyes of daily living. We've forgotten the old now. And then we will see the old through new eyes. The truth never changes. What the rishis have written, that truth can never change. But then we will see it in different eyes. If Patanjali has written 195 sutras, whatever science progresses, whatever happens, the truth of those sutras can never change. But we will now see it in a different light.
So when Patanjali wrote the sutras, wasn't his writing clouded by personality or interpretation of it? Clouded by personality, which you mentioned.
Can you imagine he has written 195 sutras? In those 195 sutras, there's not a single verb. Not a single verb. Take the Gita, there are so many verbs in it. In each slok, there has to be verbs. Patanjali has not put a single verb. How has he written those 195 sutras? And it's just a pure science he's put in front of you. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Now, in that one sentence, he's not telling you anything, whether This chit vritti nirodh, there is a doing in it because there is no verb. Right? So somebody will make a big institute of yoga. Chitta vritti nirodh has to be done. Please sit in meditation. Please take swas this way. Please do this. But he has not mentioned anything. There is not a single verb over there. He has just made a statement. This is the state. Now, when we understand it, at what level am I? At what level am I? How do I understand this from my level? Right? And suddenly I said, my level I have to make an effort. Maybe at my guru's level the effort has dissolved. And it is a happening. That is a different. But at my level I have to make an effort every day. So, for me, yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodh is a doing. Is a doing. Point will come in life when it may not be a doing. It may become a happening. But it's a different level. Right? But if I say, oh no, he has written it, so it will happen. It's not going to work that way. No? So, those truths will never change. Those truths will never change. But we will interpret them in new light. More and more light we will throw onto them. Right? So till now many people threw light on the Yoga Sutra. Till now many people threw light on the Gita. Right? Now we are going to try to throw more light. So new shades of meaning will come out. New dimensions of truth will be seen. New plays of consciousness will be. And that is the joy of the path. This is not a serious path or anything. You're not carrying baggage and trying to catch a train or something. Right? You're enjoying every moment of life.
What are the new dimensions of truth? Truth is one. What are new dimensions?
When you say truth is one, it is not one dead. It is one living. So it is one, but it is not a dead one that you can say this is truth. The minute you go to say this is truth, it has changed. Because it is a living truth. It is a living truth. So we cannot say this is the truth, but we can live each moment in that truth. Right? It's a living truth. So there can be no such thing as the absolute truth. Then it becomes dead. Then it becomes dead. It changes each moment, and it changes its dimensions each moment. It changes its angles each moment. Because for it to become manifest, it has to leave that state of absolute truth. It can't remain in that absolute truth to manifest. It has to come down a little, and when it comes down a little, it may come down in 1001 dimensions. In which way does it come to meet us? And that is the joy. But there are certain basic laws in understanding the truth, right? So what I'm thinking now is today is the 27th. So if you're ready, then I'll just finish this eyes and self-observation. And then I'd like to take at least the law of 3 I'll start with, and if possible I'll talk on the law of octaves also, if you all are ready for that. These are the truth manifests in these 2 laws. Truth manifests in these 2 laws, right? So, people at our place have not talked of the law of 7. They're not. It's very hidden in our science. They've talked a lot about the law of 3. So if you want, I'll finish this tomorrow. A little bit about self-observation, many eyes. I'll leave it over here and then move on to the law of 3 and then if possible law of 7. Depends if you all are ready. Then don't tell me you're taking a chemistry class or something.
Could you summarize just earlier on about the outward and inward attention? Can you repeat it if no one else got a question? Sort of write it down. You said it very nicely in terms of summary. basically you said attention coming out and attention going in, and then high attention coming. That's basically.
See, in a plant, attention can only go out. In an animal, attention can only go out. Right? It is only in man that attention can go out and attention can go in. Attention comes from a very, very high source. A very high source. Now, because we are two parts, something in us has descended, something in us has evolved. Can you see the cells of my body? The cells of my body, they have evolved. They've come through evolution. All the emotions in my emotional center, they have come through evolution. Right? I'm getting angry on you today. Right? So that same matter of anger which I'm using to express my anger on you is the same matter which maybe 1,000 years ago a lion was using for something else. Can you see? So through the whole animal world, all the emotions have evolved. But the presence within us, right? That has descended. That has descended. Now in plants and animals, there is no individual presence. There is a general presence. There is no individual presence. You may call your dog Rocky or whatever you want to call him. But that doesn't make him an individual presence. There is a general presence. Because their instinctive center is so developed, sometimes we feel there is some kind of double-arrowed attention in their instinctive center. So we say, this dog understands and this, right? But there can be no self-consciousness. Now man takes his attention in, and that is why he has an individual divine fragment. It is called as Atma. Right? Animals don't have Atma, they have a general divinity, not divine fragment. Divyata, not Atma. So what happens to one animal is general for all of them. So man has two parts, the divine part and the evolved part. Now the evolved part which came to meet the divine part, it has formed patterns through thousands and thousands of years. These cells of my body which have come through evolution, they have come through so much of patterns. You see there, this, and one of the basic pattern is that always attention must go out. You get it? So the minute man came on the earth, he came with this first initial inner habit that attention only goes out. And of course he was a caveman. He was in such a state that he had to take attention out. Where is he going to get his food? How is he going to protect himself, etc., etc. It is only later that he realized that attention could go in, right? He was not under some general rule of the animals, right? If the animals went for a hunt, all would be hunting, right? Or all would come under the rules of the hunt. If they are hungry, they go for a hunt, right? But he suddenly saw that he could remain hungry without going for the hunt. And he said, this is different from the animals. Definitely there's something within me which is different from the animal, different from, because if the animal is hungry, he instinctively has to go to hunt. That is the rule. But I can say, no, I'm fasting today. Can you? Now which animal will say I'm fasting today? It's not possible. So that was a result that he was given this capacity to take attention inside. With that came something else, that evolution stopped with man. Evolution stopped with man. Now there is an evolution, but that is a different kind of evolution, that is taking the attention in, and he has to take it back from where it came. Where it came is God. Where it came is God. So just imagine, if I throw my attention on you, I recognize you. If I am able to take my attention back into where it came, I recognize where it came from. My evolution is over. The very evolution, the purpose of that is over. You get what I'm trying to say? So this attention going in was called self-consciousness. But due to old patterns created over thousands of years, the attention was habituated to go out. And he had to make a special effort for it to go in. This whole effort is spirituality. Right? For that, all the religions of the world came in. But then the religions created, again, they were habituated to take the attention out. The person who made the religion, his attention had gone in, but the poor followers, their attention was still going out. And they would say, my religion is better than yours. It didn't make any difference. The only aim of the religion was to take attention in from where it came. It was a different way. Right? So, we've experimented with all these religions for thousands of years. Now normal life is the only religion. My own normal family life, my job, my this, and in all this, what is the science of taking attention back to the source? So I live my life and I slowly make an effort to take it back. Right? In Yoga Sutra, they have two words, Abhyas and Vairagya. Taking it back in is Abhyas. And renouncing those things which attract it out again, seduce it out again, hypnotize it again is Vairagya. Vairagya is not leaving your home. Vairagya is not wearing orange clothes. Vairagya is not living in a hut. Vairagya is that, what is it that attracts the attention outside? Can I renounce that? Can I hold the attention back in? That does not mean I don't enjoy a cold drink. I enjoy a cold drink, but I hold my attention in. Right? It's a technique. So then, now we are getting more subtle meanings from these different words. Can you understand? I mean, now, 100 years ago, what would Vairagya mean? Please leave your family. Please wear orange clothes. You should have no interest in money or anything. Right? But now we've taken subtle meanings out of it. Right? And we are making spirituality more rich. Right? More, what do you call, where it happens to everybody. You get what I'm trying to say? In your normal life. You can stop over here. Yes, sir.
Now I have no science background at all. I was just wondering, do you have a simple explanation for what is the connection or difference between DNA and genetics?
DNA is I think the nucleus of the gene. I think the nucleus is formed of two things, DNA and RNA. The whole cell thing is called the gene. This is what my understanding is. But in India, we did not believe in the gene. We believed in sanskar. Sanskar, the memory pattern. It's the memory pattern. Stop over here, right? So I think in a day or two I'll finish this self-observation. I want to finish this small conscience. I want to show how different eyes attract us, how to observe them. I'll finish that in a day or two. And then we'll take the law of three and then law of seven. Okay?